The dichotomy of control. Imagine waking up every morning with a mind that cannot be shaken by criticism, failure, rejection, or uncertainty. Imagine receiving bad news, not with panic, but with quiet resolve. Imagine standing in the middle of chaos while everyone else is losing themselves to fear, anger, and frustration, yet you remain calm. This isn't because your life is easier. It isn't because you're luckier. It isn't because nothing bad ever happens to you. It is because you understand one simple truth that most people spend their entire lives ignoring. A truth so powerful that it transformed slaves into philosophers, soldiers into leaders, and ordinary people into men and women of extraordinary resilience. That truth is this: not everything is yours to control. At first that sounds obvious. Of course you can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. You can't control other people's opinions. But if that is so obvious, why do so many people spend every day fighting battles they were never meant to win? They worry about tomorrow before it arrives. They replay yesterday long after it has passed. They obsess over what others think. They chase approval from people who may never appreciate them. They fear outcomes they cannot predict. And then they wonder why peace always seems just out of reach. The Stoics saw this tragedy over 2,000 years ago, while kingdoms rose and fell, while emperors commanded vast armies, while merchants chased fortunes. The Stoics noticed that human suffering almost always came from the same mistake. People tried to control what was never theirs. They exhausted themselves trying to bend reality to their desires. When reality refused, they blamed fate. They blamed society. They blamed fortune. But rarely did they question the battle itself. Among the Stoics, one man explained this better than anyone else. His name was Epictetus. Ironically, he wasn't born into wealth or privilege. He wasn't a king. He wasn't a famous general. He wasn't even free. He was born a slave. Think about that. A man with almost no external freedom became one of history's greatest teachers of inner freedom. Because while others believed freedom came from controlling the world, Epictetus realized freedom begins when you stop trying to control what never belonged to you in the first place. He opened his teachings with words that have echoed across centuries. Some things are up to us and some things are not. It is one of the simplest sentences ever written. Yet hidden inside it is a philosophy capable of changing your entire life. Today, our world has changed. We have smartphones instead of scrolls, social media instead of public forums, emails instead of handwritten letters, artificial intelligence instead of messengers. Yet the human mind remains remarkably unchanged. We still crave certainty. We still fear rejection. We still compare ourselves to others. We still become anxious over things that have not happened. Technology has evolved. Human nature has not. Every day, millions wake up and immediately surrender their peace. One negative comment ruins their mood. One unanswered message fills them with anxiety. One failed opportunity convinces them they are failures. One setback makes them question everything, not because the event itself destroyed them, but because they believed they could control what was never theirs. The Stoics would tell us something difficult to hear. The problem is rarely the world. The problem is our relationship with the world. Imagine trying to command the ocean. You scream at the waves, demand they stop, order the tide to reverse. Would the sea obey? Of course not. Yet every day we do something remarkably similar. We demand that people never disappoint us. We demand that life always be fair. We demand that success arrive on our schedule. We demand certainty in an uncertain world. Then we become angry when reality ignores our commands. The Stoic smiles at this struggle, not because suffering is amusing, but because he understands something the angry person does not. Reality has never promised obedience. Nature follows its own laws. People follow their own choices. Fortune changes without asking permission. Your task is not to command the universe. Your task is to command yourself. That single shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "How do I make life go my way?" the Stoic asks, "How do I respond well to whatever comes?" Notice the difference. One question seeks control over the external. The other seeks mastery over the internal. One creates endless frustration. The other creates lasting freedom. This is why Stoicism is not about becoming emotionless. It is not about suppressing feelings. It is not about pretending pain does not exist. A Stoic feels grief. A Stoic feels disappointment. A Stoic feels fear. But these emotions do not become dictators. They become visitors. They arrive. They are acknowledged. And eventually they leave. Because the Stoic refuses to surrender the only kingdom that truly belongs to him, his own mind. And that kingdom is where our journey begins. For before we can master the world around us, we must first understand the boundary that separates what belongs to us from what never did. That boundary is called the dichotomy of control. Once you see it clearly, you will never look at your problems the same way again. What lies outside your control? Once you understand what truly belongs to you, the next step is just as important. You must learn to recognize what does not. This is where most people struggle. Not because the answer is complicated, but because the human mind naturally wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants life to unfold according to its plans. When those plans are interrupted, frustration follows. The Stoics believed that much of this frustration comes from a simple mistake: confusing what we can influence with what we can actually control. There is a profound difference between the two. You may influence another person's opinion, but you cannot command it. You may encourage someone to love you, but you cannot force their heart. You may prepare perfectly for an opportunity, but you cannot guarantee success. You may take excellent care of your health, yet illness can still arrive without warning. The Stoics would not call this unfair. They would call it reality. Reality is not obligated to match our expectations. It simply unfolds according to causes far greater than any individual. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He chooses fertile soil. He waters the field. He removes weeds. He works tirelessly from sunrise to sunset. But can he command the rain? Can he stop a drought? Can he prevent every insect from touching his crops? No. His responsibility ends with doing his work well. The harvest depends on many things beyond him. A wise farmer understands this. A foolish farmer curses the sky. Now ask yourself, how often do we become that foolish farmer? We become angry because traffic delays us, as if the roads should rearrange themselves for our convenience. We become offended because someone misunderstands us, as if every person should interpret our words perfectly. We become anxious because the future is uncertain, as if uncertainty were a flaw instead of a natural part of life. The Stoics saw these reactions as self-inflicted burdens, not because the situations were pleasant, but because resisting reality adds unnecessary suffering to unavoidable difficulty. Imagine standing in the rain without an umbrella. You have two choices. You can complain endlessly that the rain should stop, or you can accept that it is raining and decide what to do next. Only one of those choices improves your situation. Acceptance is often misunderstood. Many people think acceptance means approval. It does not. Accepting reality does not mean you like it. It means you acknowledge it. If you deny reality, you cannot respond wisely to it. A sailor who refuses to admit there is a storm will never prepare his ship. Acceptance is the beginning of effective action. The Stoics practiced this relentlessly. When something unexpected happened, they did not waste precious energy asking, "Why me?" Instead, they asked, "Now that this has happened, what is the best response?" Notice how empowering that question is. It moves your attention away from blame, away from resentment, away from self-pity, and toward action. The past is fixed. The present is still yours. This shift is especially important when dealing with other people. Perhaps no area of life causes more unnecessary suffering than expecting others to behave exactly as we wish. We expect honesty, kindness, loyalty, gratitude, patience. When people fall short, disappointment quickly becomes bitterness. The Stoics never suggested lowering your standards. They suggested lowering your illusions. People act according to their own beliefs, desires, fears, and understanding. Some will disappoint you. Some will betray you. Some will misunderstand you completely. You cannot rewrite another person's character. You can only govern your own. This realization is liberating. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents something you are trying to control. Someone else's opinion, someone else's choices, the past, the future, luck, recognition, reputation. Now imagine setting those stones down one by one. The path does not become shorter, but it becomes lighter. That is what the dichotomy of control offers. Not an easier life, a lighter burden. Even your reputation is not entirely yours. This may be one of the hardest lessons to accept. You can live honestly, treat people fairly, speak with integrity, and still be misunderstood. History is filled with people who were criticized during their lifetime and admired only after they were gone. If your peace depends on universal approval, you are placing your happiness in the hands of strangers. The Stoics refused to do that. Instead, they asked a different question. Did I act according to my principles? If the answer was yes, they rested peacefully, regardless of public opinion. This does not mean they ignored feedback. Wise criticism can reveal blind spots. But they refused to let praise inflate them or criticism define them. They understood that both are temporary. The applause of today can become the silence of tomorrow. The criticism of today can become tomorrow's respect. Why build your identity on something so unstable? Instead, anchor yourself in what cannot be taken away: your integrity, your discipline, your courage, your wisdom. These belong to you as long as you choose them. There is another area where people desperately seek control: time. We wish we could slow it, reverse it, pause it, relive it. We mourn lost opportunities. We regret careless decisions. We replay conversations that ended years ago. Yet no amount of regret changes yesterday. The Stoics urged us to stop negotiating with the past. It cannot hear your arguments. Instead, let the past become a teacher rather than a prison. Learn the lesson. Carry the wisdom. Leave the burden behind. The same applies to the future. Planning is wise. Worrying is not. Planning prepares you for possibilities. Worry imagines disasters that may never happen. The Stoics encouraged careful preparation, followed by peaceful acceptance. Prepare as if success depends on your effort. Accept outcomes as if they belong to nature. This balance creates resilience. When fortune smiles upon you, you remain humble. When fortune turns against you, you remain steady, because your peace was never built upon fortune in the first place. It was built upon character, and character is something no storm can wash away. As you begin to see this boundary more clearly, an uncomfortable truth emerges. Much of what exhausts us every day comes from fighting battles that were never ours to fight. Once you stop wasting energy there, something remarkable happens. You have more strength for the one battle that truly matters, the battle within yourself. That is where the Stoic directs all of his attention, because mastering your own mind is infinitely more powerful than trying to master the world. Why most people remain miserable, the hidden trap of misplaced control. Now that we understand what is within our control and what is not, we arrive at a difficult question. If the Stoic principle is so simple, why do so few people actually live by it? Why do millions continue to feel anxious, angry, and disappointed every single day? The answer is not a lack of intelligence. It is habit. From childhood, we are taught to measure our worth by things that constantly change: grades, money, status, popularity, titles, appearance, the approval of others. None of these are completely ours to command. Yet many people build their entire identity upon them. Imagine constructing a house on shifting sand. At first, everything appears stable. The walls stand tall. The roof looks secure. But the moment the ground begins to move, cracks appear everywhere. That is how many people live. Their confidence depends on compliments. Their happiness depends on success. Their peace depends on circumstances remaining comfortable. The moment life changes, and life always changes, their foundation begins to collapse. The Stoics warned against this long before modern psychology existed. They understood that anything outside your control is an unstable place to build your identity. If your happiness depends on the stock market, your peace rises and falls with every headline. If your happiness depends on another person's affection, your emotions become prisoners of their decisions. If your happiness depends on never failing, then every mistake becomes a personal catastrophe. This is not freedom. It is dependency disguised as ambition. The Stoics seek something different, a source of stability that cannot be taken away by fortune. That source is character. Character remains when wealth disappears. Character remains when fame fades. Character remains when plans fall apart. That is why the Stoics invested more energy in becoming good than in merely becoming successful. Success is uncertain. Virtue is a choice. Consider how often people postpone happiness. I'll be happy when I get promoted. I'll be happy when I earn more money. I'll be happy when people finally recognize my value. The problem is that each achievement simply creates another condition. The finish line keeps moving. There is always another promotion, another purchase, another milestone, another comparison. The pursuit never ends because it was built on externals. The Stoics observed this endless chase and asked a profound question. What if peace is not found at the end of desire, but at the end of attachment? Think about that. They were not telling people to abandon ambition. They were warning against becoming emotionally enslaved by outcomes. Work hard, aim high, pursue excellence, but never allow your inner peace to depend entirely upon whether the world rewards your effort. Because the world owes no one guarantees. This principle becomes even clearer when we examine comparison. Perhaps no habit destroys contentment faster than comparing your life to someone else's. Today we compare careers, homes, relationships, bodies, vacations, followers, income, achievements. The list never ends. Yet comparison rests upon a dangerous illusion. It assumes you are seeing the whole picture. You are not. You see another person's victories. You rarely see their private struggles. You see their celebration, not their sacrifice. You see their success, not the countless failures that came before it. The Stoics would remind us that comparison is another attempt to control something impossible. You cannot live another person's life. You can only live your own with excellence. Imagine two runners on different paths. One constantly looks sideways to measure the other. The other keeps his eyes fixed ahead. Who reaches the finish line with greater confidence? The answer is obvious. The first runner wastes energy. The second preserves it. Life works the same way. Every moment spent envying another person's path is a moment stolen from improving your own. This is why the Stoics encouraged attention to the present moment. Not because the past and future are meaningless, but because action is only possible now. You cannot improve yesterday. You cannot act tomorrow. You can only choose what you will do in this moment. That is where your power lives. This idea also changes how we see failure. Most people fear failure because they confuse it with identity. I failed quietly becomes I am a failure. The Stoics rejected that conclusion entirely. Failure is an event. Identity is a choice. A failed business does not make you a failed human being. A rejected application does not diminish your character. A mistake does not erase your worth. It simply presents another opportunity to practice wisdom, courage, patience, and perseverance. This perspective transforms adversity into education. Every setback becomes a classroom. Every disappointment becomes a test. Every obstacle becomes a chance to strengthen the mind. That is why Stoicism is often misunderstood as cold or detached. In reality, it is deeply hopeful. It does not promise that life will spare you from hardship. It promises that hardship does not have the final word. Your response does. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote during wars, political turmoil and personal loss. He did not write from a place of perfect comfort. He wrote from experience. Again and again he reminded himself that external events could disturb his body, challenge his plans and test his patience. But they could not corrupt his character unless he allowed them to. That reminder remains just as powerful today. The world will continue to change. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Unexpected challenges will arrive without warning. You cannot stop these things, but you can refuse to let them determine the kind of person you become. That is the freedom the Stoics fought to protect. Not freedom from difficulty. Freedom within difficulty. And once you understand this, another question naturally arises. What happens when life delivers its greatest disappointments? When your best efforts still end in failure? How does a Stoic stand firm when everything seems to fall apart? That is where we turn next. Conclusion. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth stands above all the others. Life has never promised certainty. It has never promised fairness. It has never promised that your plans will unfold exactly as you hope. Storms will come. People will disappoint you. Opportunities will be missed. Dreams will change. Time will continue moving forward, whether you are ready or not. The Stoics never denied these realities. They simply refused to become slaves to them. Their greatest lesson was not how to control the world. It was how to remain free within it. Every morning you are presented with two paths. The first is the path most people unknowingly choose. They chase approval. They fear rejection. They worry about tomorrow. They cling to yesterday. They measure their worth by things that can disappear overnight. Their peace depends on circumstances they do not control. As a result, their happiness is always fragile, always temporary, always one unexpected event away from collapse. The second path is quieter, less celebrated, but infinitely stronger. It is the path of the Stoic. The Stoic wakes each day asking only one question: what is mine to do today? Not, how can I make everyone like me? Not, how can I guarantee success? Not, how can I control every outcome? Instead, how can I act with wisdom? How can I show courage? How can I practice justice? How can I exercise self-discipline? These questions place your attention where it belongs, on the one thing that has always been yours: your character. This is the true meaning of freedom. Freedom is not having perfect circumstances. Freedom is refusing to let imperfect circumstances rule your mind. When someone insults you, remember, their words belong to them. Your response belongs to you. When you fail, remember, the outcome is in the past. Your next decision is still yours. When uncertainty fills the future, remember, you cannot live tomorrow today. You can only live this moment well. When success arrives, welcome it with gratitude. But do not build your identity upon it. When failure arrives, accept its lesson, but do not mistake it for your identity. Fortune changes. Character endures. That is why Stoicism has survived for more than 2,000 years. Empires have risen and fallen. Technology has transformed the world. Generations have come and gone. Yet human beings still wrestle with the same fears, the same hopes, and the same desire to control what was never theirs. The answer has not changed. Separate what depends on you from what does not. Give your full effort to the first. Release your attachment to the second. This simple practice has the power to change every area of your life. Your work becomes more focused because you stop obsessing over outcomes. Your relationships become healthier because you stop trying to control other people. Your mind becomes calmer because you stop arguing with reality. Your confidence becomes stronger because it is built upon integrity rather than praise. Little by little, the burden grows lighter. Not because life becomes easier, but because you stop carrying weights that were never yours to bear. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Most of the chains that bind us are invisible. They are forged from expectation, comparison, fear, attachment, regret. The moment you recognize those chains, you also discover the key that unlocks them. The key is choice. You may not choose your circumstances, but you always choose your attitude toward them. You may not choose the weather, but you choose how you walk through the storm. You may not choose every chapter of your life, but you choose the person you become while living it. And that choice is enough. So as you leave this video, remember the words that have guided Stoics for centuries. Some things are within your control. Some things are not. Spend your life mastering the first. Make peace with the second. In doing so, you will discover a kind of strength that cannot be shaken by praise or criticism, a peace that survives both success and failure, and a freedom that no circumstance can ever take away. Because the greatest victory is not conquering the world, it is conquering yourself. Thank you for watching. If this philosophy challenged the way you think, take a moment to reflect on one question. What burden are you carrying today that was never yours to control? Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not to hold on. It is to let go. Until next time, protect your mind, strengthen your character, and remember, the world may shape your circumstances, but only you can shape your soul.